Greetings and salutations. We are back with some one talent challenge with some more one talent challenge. The joys of leaving it unedited. You get to see all my mistakes. Yeah. And like I said in my previous video, I try not to bring it to a heavy topic, but I don't know. I get to that point where I'm like, man, I start talking about something and then my mind runs off on a tangent. So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna desperately try to keep this one lighthearted and fun. Okay, we'll see. Well, I mean, how lighthearted and fun can you honestly keep Diablo 2? Right? I mean, I've already called my mercenary a potato. I called him that in the last game. In the last video. Last game. What am I on? Where is my mind today? Not here. That is for certain. But nevertheless, we're working our way through Act 2. We're going to try to get as far as we can in about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe. I don't want to make these too long of a video. I usually say that, and then I end up making them an hour. But that's just the way about Diablo, you know? Maybe not the current Diablos, because there's something really wrong with the current Diablos, right? You take a look at Diablo 4, Diablo 3. Then more of Diablo 4. If you really take a good hard look at Diablo 4, it's like, ah, yes, I can spend, a couple hours playing Diablo 2. Sure, absolutely. You can spend a couple hours playing World of Warcraft to get lost in it. Especially the Classic Edition. You could just veg out and not really pay much of attention and just kind of go. But in Diablo 2 or in Diablo 4, it's, oh, hold on, let me run, the dungeon or whatever, 150 in a minute and a half. How do you do that for 2 hours? I mean, Elon Musk did it, right? He's like number one on the list. I don't know if he's number one or three, five. I don't know what number he is on the leaderboard for running the nightmare dungeons or whatever they're called in Diablo, and he's down to like level 150, running them in a minute 55 or something like that. No. I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing the entertainment value in that. I mean, if it takes skilled play, then sure, cool, that's great. You've got skilled play, awesome, wonderful. I got nothing against the guy. I mean, hey, he runs what, 3 companies, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. Appreciate the grind. It's great, but it's like where I I can't find. I've tried to find the enjoyment in Diablo 4, and I cannot find it. I mean, I sit there and I'm like, wait, it's more like Diablo 404, fun not found. Though I will say one thing. I will say this: Path of Exile 2 is looking real good. It's looking real good. So fully expect Path of Exile 2 content. Not right now because I'm not gonna buy into I'm not gonna buy into the early access. I'm gonna wait for it to come out. And when it comes out, I'm gonna play it because it's gonna be free. Why not, right? Like that's just one of those games that you see it, you pick it up, it's free, and you just kind of you run with it. Who knows? I liked the original Path of Exile. But the thing about Path of Exile, if you've never played it, I might have to just download it and give it a go so I could show you. Path of Exile's got a lot of talents on this big sphere grid, like from Final Fantasy, and it seems confusing and intimidating to new players. So there is that. So I mean, that's you have that, oh, the talent system looks intimidating and scary to all these new players, and so a lot of people kind of shy away from it and don't want to play it because, well, there's a huge cluster of talents and you don't really know what you're doing, and so you kind of try not to do it. Now, to me, the thing that got me about Path of Exile when I first started playing it was I loved how it felt like Diablo 2. It was free, and it was just way different in the talent system. You could use pretty much any spell you wanted, so it felt like Diablo 1 as well. Because in Diablo 1, you could use any spell, even as a warrior. So long as you put in the required intellect, you could do it. You could run around and be a spellcasting warrior if you just felt like it. And I like that about a game. I like having that free flowing kind of, you know, we don't want to limit you to, you have to make this class. And so there you go. And you're just kind of pigeonholed because that's kind of bad game design, if you ask me, is when you pigeonhole. And people say that the free to play model is bad game design. Now, this is where I vehemently disagree. Okay? And people are going to say, well, wait a minute, why do you disagree that free to play is bad game design? Here we go. You're playing a game that's free to play. Whenever you have a game that says free to play, you're going to get what? A massive amount of players. Tons. It's going to bring more eyeballs to your game than if you slap a $10, $20, $30 price tag on it. This is just common knowledge because it says free and everyone's, well, cheap. Deep down inside, you can't say that you're not. It's like when you get invited to a party, why do you go? Free eats. Most of the time, it's because there's free food or free drinks or both. So you go to parties you can go to parties of people you don't even like and be like, oh yeah, hey, I'm here, man. So it's awesome. So where's the food? And that's exactly why you go. Most of the time, you don't even go for the camaraderie. You just go and you're like, well, hey, there's free chow. And people are like that. And that's fine. Trust me, everybody does it. I mean, there was a phrase in an anime called Origairu, and the phrase was from Hikigaya Hachiman, and he says, food always tastes better when you don't have to work for it. Perfect example. But nevertheless, having a free-to-play game is a great model. Because if you have a free-to-play game, more people are going to gravitate to your game. But how do you keep them around? You obviously have some sort of microtransactions, and we had this discussion the other day about microtransactions and how to do them and how not to do them. Well, I further thought about it, and I came up with a rather interesting idea about microtransactions. Microtransactions, in and of itself, in a nutshell, are almost always pay to win. I'm gonna pour myself a cup of coffee. Bear with me. And when you have that pay to win, it dis- it disenfranchises and doesn't incentivize players to grind. It doesn't incentivize players to come back and play the game. It actually does the opposite. It says, "Hey, I'm taking this incentive and I'm just throwing it away because you could just swipe your card. You work all week, just swipe your card. There you go. You've caught up." And when you stop incentivizing the players to play the game, they're only going to keep repeatedly using the pay to win mechanic. Now, companies don't care because companies are like, "Hey, money." Okay, yeah, it's up to a company to make money. I'm not saying that that's greedy, and I'm not saying that it's terrible because again, companies have to make money, otherwise they can't produce anything. So you have to have that whole capitalistic side of the whole discussion. However, and this is the big however, When you're talking about a company that's realistically trying to make something that you want to inspire more people to play, the best way to go about it is to make it free to play. And then you make the pay structure so that you don't make it so that stash spots and everything are required, that you have to pay to get extra stash spots. Don't do that. That's bad. It takes a core game mechanic and it says, no, 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 we're just going to put it over here, right? We're going to make it this thing. You don't want to do that. It's going to, again, it's going to take all these people that are wanting to play the game and grind it out and enjoy it. And it's saying, well, if you had money, you could get access to this extra storage space. That would be the difference between being a champ and a chump, right? And you don't want to do that. So, how do you fix that? I came up with an idea the other day and I was talking to my brother about it. You make your game, and then you make the new content that comes out, like new dungeons and new raids and stuff like that. You make those that are paying a monthly fee have access to that for a couple of weeks in advance, right? They get it a week to 2 weeks ahead of everyone else, and they could go in and farm it and play through it. Because realistically speaking, the people that are paying money for something are not the ones that are on all the time. They're paying the money because they don't have the time to play. Generally, they want to play the game. They want to be able to play with their friends that maybe their friends are streamers, right? And their friends sit at home all day and can sit there and play video games and make a living. Maybe that's the case because their friends are, I don't know, uniquely entertaining. We'll just say that. So, given that, you know, John Q. factory worker over here is wanting to play with his friends, but his friends are like, oh, you need to catch up. You can't really offer experience bonuses because, well, that would be pay to win. So you don't really want that. You can't offer character boosts because, again, that's, well, pay to win. So you want to walk away from the whole pay to win idea. So it's more like pay to enter these dungeons before other people. Yeah, you still have to play the characters and still have to level, but you don't really have to be so stringent on your gearing because these dungeons are going to offer you comparable gear and better gear than other people because they're new. But it's not going to be so game breaking that in the week or so that this happens that you're going to be so overgeared that, you know, it's going to be this massive difference. Which is true. Because if you think about it, you know, everything has to have a chance to drop. So you have the chance to drop, and if they fail that chance to pick it up when it drops, well, there you go. And then you just bring out the content for everyone else a week later, and now you have other people that can go into the content as regular players, and everything's good. Everything's golden. Doesn't throw anything off, doesn't really restrict the non-paying players because they'll just get access to it in a week or two. The people that pay, now you don't necessarily have to do a monthly fee. You could say, oh, you pay $1.50, you get into this dungeon a week free, or a week ahead of time. You can make it like that and monetize it in small amounts. You can monetize cosmetics. You can monetize other things like that. You just can't monetize gear and crucial services. Dungeons aren't crucial services because if you were to make a game that has dungeons and actually put in worthwhile PvP, the players that are PvPers don't necessarily need the dungeons. They could just go kill other players and put in a grind there. And that's kind of the idea is you make it so that you're not holding back those that want to pay, but you're also not overpowering those that do want to pay. Or you're not holding back those that don't want to pay, but you're not also overpowering those that do. I know it sounds odd to say that, but in actuality, that would work. Realistically speaking, I mean, or as the kids say today, real talk. It would totally make the people want to play the game in that, like, they would actually want to put forth the effort. But I'm sure they could come up with other ideas. I mean, Dungeon Fighter Online has a great way of doing itemization. And that itemization is the fact that you have people that are um, in Dungeon Fighter Online. It's not people. You have cosmetics that you could get through this little, not necessarily like a gotcha machine, but they are cosmetics that you can uh, pay and kind of have almost like a gotcha. It's a gamble at getting the right cosmetic. Now those cosmetics can be bought and sold on their little auction hall that they have in the game as well. So it doesn't necessarily incentivize the pay to win strategy because there is no real pay to win because these cosmetics don't do anything at all except maybe they give you a little extra boost in regen, but it's only in PvE content. And in Dungeon Fighter Online, the PvP content has its own rewards. I mean, the game's been going strong for just as long as World of Warcraft, and so they're clearly doing something right. So, given that little scenario, it's quite interesting that you can have a pay to play model that isn't egregiously dipping into the player's pockets, and it's an optional pay to play model. I mean, if you think about it though, like that's one way you'd have to really rectify how people can get video games and enjoy them. I mean, because you got a lot of people out there that can't even enjoy basic video games because it's expensive to get into. And this would allow people to have a way to get that enjoyment without being, well, I guess it's just a way to prevent gatekeeping. Know what I mean? And I think that's it. I think I think that's my biggest beef with most gaming today. A lot of gaming is just so gatekeepy that it's off-putting. Because I mean, it tries to make some sort of like exclusivity, and I mean, I'm talking like a financial exclusivity. That's it. It's exclusivity based on finance and finances and money, and I don't like that. It's like take a look at anything really. People that used to play dice, they used to shoot dice on the street. It's not really exclusive. You could just shoot dice for fun, but most people usually gamble when they're shooting dice. And at which point, there you have that financial exclusivity again. I mean, it kind of sucks, yeah, but nothing stops people from getting a stick and coming up with a game that uses sticks, right? I don't know. Maybe I grew up in a different time. Maybe I'm the one that's sitting there thinking that, get a stack of cards or whatever and play card games with your friends. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm the old, the old fogey. I don't know. Kind of hard to say, that play cards with your friends and I'm sitting here playing Diablo 2 for YouTube content. But if somebody said to me, "Hey, you want to sit down and play some cards?" Sure. Sit down, play euchre, play hearts, play Kalashnikov. Which, by the way, if you haven't played Kalashnikov, try it. Um, you could just look up "Life of Boris Kalashnikov" on Google, not Google, sorry, "Life of Boris Kalashnikov" on YouTube, and it will teach you how to play Kalashnikov. It's a fun game. It goes fast too. Real fun game. And once I learned how to play Kalashnikov, I showed my friend Tyler how to play Kalashnikov, and we had a blast. We sat there for 3 4 games playing Kalashnikov, and then we played some 3 player Kalashnikov. Real fun. Uh, but I mean, if you take a look at it, a lot of people are playing Liar's Bar too. That's a game that I've looked at. I like the idea of it. Like, I mean, come on, everybody's played that in college, but obviously not with the Russian roulette portion. That's a little excessive. Don't ever try that. But I'm saying the whole you sit there and you got cards and you say, oh, well, this is, you know, they used to call it BS, right? And you'd play like, you know, you'd have to start out with deuces and then play threes, fours, fives, all the way up through. And the whole thing was to try to bluff your opponent. And then when you would bluff your opponent, you would essentially try to get them to call your bluff and then have them pick up the cards. And then the whole object of the game was to get out of cards. And you'd have all the cards in your hand, right? It's kind of like Uno, but different. But anyway, we're sitting there and I played it in college, and it was so much fun to play it in college. Oh, I miss those days. So we're sitting there playing, and my college sweet mate friend, his name was Rob. And Rob got to the point. He's just like, he's like, we're gonna play BS. Okay. And he's like, I warn you guys, I'm good at this game. Okay, that's cool, man. So we're sitting there, we're playing, and it started out. I'm like, you know, deuces. I throw him down. I was like, 2 deuces. Next guy throws down a three. Rob throws down a couple of fours. I throw down a couple fives. And I did have 2 5s in hand. And he called me on it. And he goes, BS. I was like, pick him up. That's all I would say. Pick him up. Meaning pick up all the cards. Pick him up. You got it wrong. And sure enough, he reached down, flipped him over, picked it up. And ran along a couple more hands, and we're sitting there playing, and he laid, we're like eights, nines, so on and so forth. And, You know, I was like, two tens. He called me on it. He's like, BS. All right. So I scooped up the cards. I picked them up. Didn't even say pick them up or nothing. I just scooped up the cards and I was like, all right. And so ran along a little bit further in the game. Hands getting pretty skimpy. We had already made it all the way around and we were back up to laying down queens. And I was like, my last two cards. This was like fourth game of the night. Last two cards. I laid him down. I said two queens. He called me on it. He's like, that's bull. That's BS, man. I just like, pick him up. He didn't even flip him over. He just scooped up all the cards. We started shuffling for round five. He never looked at the cards. Halfway through his shuffle, mind you, the game's already over. We're already shuffling for the next game. Halfway through the shuffle, I looked right at him and I said, "You do realize I never laid down two queens?" He's like, "What?" I said, I didn't lay down two queens." He's like, "You should have picked him up then." I said, "Yeah, but I didn't." I said, "Pick him up." You did. And he just kind of looked at me. He goes, "Oh, no, no, I said, "No, I did not lay down two queens." I said, "In fact, I didn't have a queen in my hand." I said, "You didn't flip him over." I said, "You just accepted the fact that I had won, and we moved on." And he just was like, "I'm not playing this with you anymore." What I had done throughout the entire night is I did the Pavlovian dog. I turned him into Pavlov's dog. Every single time I was right, I said, pick him up. Every single time I was wrong, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and picked it up myself. So when I finally bluffed him the last time and I said, pick him up, he didn't question it because I had never misled him. So he took me at my word, at which point that was the downfall of him, is because he believed when I said pick him up. So it was really funny. And he never did play. He never did play with me at the table again. And it was great. And people said, well, why is it great? You never got to play that game again. Well, it's fine. That's fine. I mean, we had multiple occasions where other players, they were like, oh, yeah, we're going to go play some BS. There's five or six of us in this college suite. My roommate's like, I'm in. Rob's like, I'm in. Andy's like, I'll play. Uh, Trying to think of the other guy's name. There was another guy there, and Mike even came by, and Mike was a big guy. He was like 6'5", 6'6". He knew my roommate back from high school, and he knew Rob as well. So Mike's there, and Mike's like, I'll play, and I'm just kind of standing there. And Rob looks over at me. He's like, "You're not playing, are you?" I said, "No, no, I'll sit out. I won't play." And Mike's like, what are you afraid of him playing or something?" Rob's like, "You don't know. You weren't here the other night." He's devious. He's just like, you can't win against him. Not true. They had won earlier because they went out of cards and I couldn't. I didn't get the chance to go out of cards. But Rob was just so mortified from that one game that he just stopped playing with me. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And the weird part is I never and I had to leave after one semester of college because I had to come back home and start taking care of my mom at the time, who was ill. And so I never did get to see what went on with the rest of them or where they went in life. And you know it's just interesting. It was kind of like that one moment where you see one person and you kind of like appear in their life for a reason, and then after that reason's been fulfilled, Doesn't matter, and that you just never get to see him again, and that happens a lot. But man, it was a great time playing cards with those guys was great. And I mean I got him addicted to StarCraft. I got him addicted to Diablo. That's the first time I used a trackball, and it's kind of funny because my roommate was having problems beating that last level of Half-Life, and he was having problems beating this one mission in Mafia. The one mission in Mafia was a driving mission, and you had to keep the car at a certain quality so you couldn't run into things. And the mission in Half-Life was the one where you had to do a lot of platforming and then not get hit by head crabs. Now, mind you, I had never played Half-Life. And I was like, let's try it. And I had never used a trackball. Now, he didn't have the trackball that I have, which is where you use your thumb to move the mouse pointer. His was the one where you had to move it with your middle finger. So he had a really weird trackball, but yet I learned how to use a trackball real quick. Quick study. I'm sitting there and I tried maybe twice, 3 times. I tried twice or 3 times to finish that level in Half-Life, and he's like, man, he's like, I told you, he's like, it's so difficult, it's almost impossible. Said, it's not impossible. And I'm gonna be calling this video after I get the cube, the Haraja cube. I said, it's not impossible, man. I said, just give me a minute. I said I've never used a trackball. Just give me a minute to get used to it. And he was like, all right, whatever, man. And that's kind of the way he thought I was just, you know, goofing and clowning on him. And I said, no. I said, just give me a minute. I'll figure it out. About the 4th time I did it, I nailed it. I said I just had to get used to the trackball. That's it. I had to change how I played the game from when I had the mouse. And he's like, have you ever played Half-Life before? I said, no. And he's like, man, that's crazy. I said, I used to play a lot of Quake. A lot of Quake. And a lot of Unreal Tournament. So, to me, you know, I said, if you're playing Quake, you're hopping, you're trying to hop railgun shots. And I said, hopping railgun shots is a little bit harder than hopping head crabs. So, I, just absolutely beat that level in Half-Life, and then he's just like, okay, well, I got this mission in uh Mafia that's really difficult. And I said, okay, so what do I have to do? And he had it set up so that he could move his trackball to steer his car. Like he could move the trackball left or right, steer his car. I said, you don't want to do that. I said, you want to set it up for WSAD. You want to set it up for your movement keys. So I changed the interface. I set it up for WSAD. And, I got out there, and first time I tried the mission, I failed it. I said, I have to keep the car above a certain durability. He's like, yeah. He's like, that's really hard, and to drive it, and not hit anything, and to get away from the cops and everything. I said, yeah, don't worry, I got it. So, ran along, 5-10 minutes of me trying it. And then when I finally switched it over to what I was comfortable with the WSAD for the movement, no problems. I absolutely dominated. Drove the car between, 2 cars, and it was just splitting hairs, and didn't have any issues whatsoever. And he looked at me and his jaw dropped. He's just like, have you ever played Mafia before? I said, no, but I played Grand Theft Auto 3. It's pretty much the same thing. And he's like, but how? He's like, how on earth did you do that so easy? I said, you got to understand. I said, once you understand what you're doing, it's easy to do. So, like, It's like, when I played Grand Theft Auto 3, I don't sit there and, try to do like certain specific things. I just go. I do like sandbox goofy driving on Grand Theft Auto 3. It's not like I'm trying to complete the missions or anything. I spend a lot of my time just driving around getting a feel for the vehicles in the game. I sit and I play a whole bunch of racing games. And in fact, I'm really good at racing games. Not so much like Mario Kart, but other racing games I'm really good at. Because I'll watch how other people play and I'll learn to copy their line. I don't know. I've always had that very like good sense of mirror neurons where I could just essentially copy what they're doing. It was interesting to me anyway. Maybe not to anybody else, but it's just it's the way I've always been. I've always had good like they are called mirror neurons, and it's essentially what you do is you can mimic other people. You can mimic how they play. But I'd have to watch how they play. If that makes sense. To most people that doesn't make sense. They just kind of sit there and they scratch their head and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Let me explain it. Wait, 4 to 14? Ooh, wait, that's even better than what I got. All right. We're into our stealth armor. We're running around faster. Got faster run walk, faster hit recovery, regenerate mana, stamina, poison resist. We're looking good. We also got a lot of cold duration reduction. Got half freeze duration on that. We got half freeze duration on that. So that means I have a quarter of freeze duration, which is beautiful. But as I said, I was going to end after I got the Roderick Cube, and I did. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and I'm glad I actually got to keep this one lighthearted and fun. Challenge accepted, challenge defeated. I did it. Have a good one.